Unforgiveness.
Okay, yeah. Ooh, Lord, that's a big one. Yeah, unforgiveness, major one. What else?
Deal with issues at hand rather than I don't know the term for it, but it's like dealing with issues and rather than covering it up or suppressing it. I don't have the term for it, but
So, so suppressing the issue.
yes.
Okay. Okay.
Trusting. Somebody said trusting.
Okay. Trust it. Ooh. Okay. Trusting, suppressing the issue, unforgiveness. Hmm. Okay. Is there a way for me to see the comment? No. If anybody's commenting.
Rule.
Nope. Just y'all. Okay. Praise the Lord.
The next one, they said overcoming deceit.
Oh, that's a big one. That's a big
They're
one.
too shy to talk, but
Okay. All right. Cool. Let me do this. I'm sharing the stream on the Book of Faces. So hold on. Okay, so let's talk about. I'll start with unforgiveness first. I'll start with unforgiveness first. Here we go. If you do not deal with unforgiveness, watch this. I'm sure you may have heard the adage, or you've heard the the phrase, or the saying, I should say. When you don't forgive other people, it's like drinking poison, expecting the other person to die.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When you don't forgive, it, it is like drinking poison, expecting the other person to die. Unforgiveness, watch this, is not for the other person. Unforgiveness is for you. I'm sorry. Forgiveness is for you. So forgiveness is not for the other person. Forgiveness is for you. Because a lot of times we will have an emotional wound incited by someone else or caused by someone else. We'll experience a trauma by somebody else. And this is not to say that everything is just okay and you should just sweep it under the rug. No. You have to deal with it, but at the same time, you have to work toward forgiving the other party. Why? Because when you don't forgive, it literally you are holding on to the trauma. I'm gonna say this again. When you don't forgive, you are actually holding on to the trauma yourself. That person could have moved up sometime, and it doesn't make it right. And I can't stand when people do it. They do you wrong, and then they just walk off like they ain't do anything at all. And it's like, wait, whoa, 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 whoa. You're not just gonna walk off and act like you didn't just do what you did. But at the same time, I still have to forgive you for real. Because forgiveness, watch this, absence from conversation of the problem or the issue is not forgiveness. You not dealing with it and just saying I forgive you is not forgiveness. Because a lot of times you will endure a particular trauma, a particular tragedy, a particular emotional wound. And if you have not forgiven totally, because you have to let it go as if you never actually did it. Does this make sense?
Yes.
You have to actually forgive as if that person never did what they did to you. As if, right? That is when forgiveness, when you literally remove the fault from the person. Yeah, buddy.
I have a question.
I have an answer.
You said forgiveness is when you remove the fault from the person as if it haven't happened.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do that, does that mean that you have to be with that person and be in relationship with that person as if it never happened?
No. You can abdicate somebody from fault and still not be in relationship with them. You can, it doesn't mean just jump back in and be like, oh, okay, we're good. And then I'm gonna let you stab me again. No, that is not it. But what it means is I'm going to preserve my sanity. I'm going to preserve my emotional health. I'm going to preserve my mental health. I'm going to preserve my spiritual health, my soul health. I'm going to preserve all of that. And what I'm going to do is I am now going to, excuse me, I'm going to forgive you. I'm going to hopefully have the conversation with you to get to the place where we can understand everything. And after, hold on one second, y'all. So I can forgive you. I can handle what's going on. We can have the conversation, right? We want to have the conversation. We want to deal with it, but that does not mean that you still get a right or you still have a place in my life. Oh boy, does that make sense?
Yes.
So you gotta release the fault. You gotta let them, as I like to say, let them have it. Right? Forgive them, release the fault from them. Release the fault from them, deal with it, and sometimes wisdom will tell you, okay, we're good. We dealt with the issue. We dealt with the problem, but this is what our relationship needs to look like from this point forward. Sometimes that means we're not in relationship at all. However, I don't have an emotional response or an emotional wound toward you. Meaning I can be around you and be just as fine, be just as cool. I can hug you, shake your hand, be fine, and not have any ill feeling toward you or even have an ill action. There's not a rise that comes up in me when I see you or I come around you. That's forgiveness. The sobering truth, the sobering reality of life is this, and unforgiveness, I should say. The sobering reality, sobering truth, sobering all of that is the Bible says, if you don't forgive your brother, I will not forgive you. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. If you don't forgive your brother, I will not forgive you. Let that sink in. If you do, and not only just forgive like to throw it under the rug, but rather forgive like he forgives. Let me ask y'all this question. How does God forgive?
The old people say he throws it into the sea of forgetfulness.
Yeah. Yeah, he throws it into the sea of forgiveness. But then also, not only does he throw it into the sea of forgetfulness, but well, no, let me ask you this question. So is forgiving? Is forgetting forgiving?
No, it's not.
Okay. Because you can forgive and still remember, right?
Yes.
It's not that God doesn't want you to he wants you to remember. However, you're not just going to just forget, but not just remember. But watch this. It's where you can remember, watch this, without an adverse response. Did you grab that?
Yep.
You can remember, but you can remember without having an adverse response. That is very, very, very important. Okay? Very important. Because there are so many times somebody will do something to us and we'll be like, oh no, I ain't gonna be in relationship with you. Oh no, stay away from me. Oh no, oh no. You know, you're going through all of this stuff. Because you remember what they did with you. And 9 times out of 10, the reason why, oh boy, the reason why this happens is because you aren't dealing with the trauma. You hold unforgiveness in your heart when you refuse to deal with the trauma.
I would ask our guests to mute their mic, please.
Okay. All right. It's important. All right. Very, very, very important to understand that you can endure a trauma. And, well, no, let me say this. It's important to deal with whatever happened to you, hopefully with the person. But this is how you deal. So you might ask, okay, well then how do I deal with the trauma of unforgiveness? Or how do I deal with the unforgiveness? Because unforgiveness is what is what keeps you in it's what keeps you in the unhealed emotional state. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So when you don't deal with forgiveness, I'm sorry, yeah, if you don't forgive, it keeps your emotions unhealed. It actually keeps you wounded. All right. So how do I deal with the trauma? What if this person doesn't want to deal with me? What if this person doesn't want to talk to me or whatever? Then you need to deal with it inside yourself. How do you deal with that? You need to tell your truth about what happened, yes, and then also tell yourself the truth of why did it affect you that way? Why is it affecting me like this? Why is this so hard for me? Why is this so traumatic for me, if you will? And how did I let this happen to me? Oh boy. How did I let this happen to me? Mm-hmm.
So you let it happen to yourself?
Oh boy. Sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes we don't have control over such circumstances, though, right?
Right. Yeah. Sometimes you have no control over it. Sometimes you don't. You know. Um. I was counseling someone, two people, not at the same time, two different sessions. But in one session, both of them were dealing with rape, right? And one rape victim literally had no control over it. Someone literally broke into their house and attacked them while they were sleeping, you know, got them while they were asleep, all of that. So she woke up to someone rape, forcing themselves onto her. No control over it. That person did it. Now the second client that I had that I was counseling literally was scantily clad. She dressed. She was dressed showing all of her assets, all of her gifts from God. Okay. Showing all her gifts from God. She hold on one second. There's people saying that they're trying to view it and they can't view it for some reason. Okay, just letting you know, I don't know. But there was one who was dressed all showing all of her goodness and mercy and her gifts from the Lord, and just showing it all. Shorts barely covering her whole behind, and they were super tight. You've got, and then she was showing all of her cleavage. I mean, just looking like, essentially, come get it. So there was a guy who, they went out to a lounge and she was dressed like this. She let him buy her drinks, pay for food, do all of that stuff. And She lets him come back to her house. They're kissing, heavy petting, doing all of that. And then when he's ready to take it to the next thing, all of a sudden she goes, no. And they're both in a drunken state, inebriated, intoxicated. She's now telling him no after she gave all signs that come get it. Oh boy. So then, of course, he forces himself on her, ends up taking it, and then now she's in counseling. Am I saying that it was okay for him to rape her? Absolutely not. But at the same time, you also, like I said, you have to tell the truth. The truth is, you dressed like come and get it. You let him pay for all of this stuff, which in the man's eye, in the man's mind, I'm paying for your food. I'm paying for these drinks. Now we done got drunk. You dressed like that. You flirting with me. You brought me back to your house. You were kissing, were petting. It done got heavy. All roads or all signs is pointing to let's get it. But then you say no. That doesn't work. So while it was wrong for him, if you're going to truly deal with your trauma now, you have to be willing to tell the truth. The truth is, you probably shouldn't have been dressing like that. You probably shouldn't have let him come back to your house. And you probably shouldn't have gotten drunk with him. That's the truth, right? So do you see the difference between it?
Yes.
So you've got to tell the truth when you're dealing with trauma. All right.
You're muted.
Streaming is on.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Let me do this. See if I can't move my keyboard. I think that's what's going on. All right. So now we've got this going on here. There are certain things that can not wound. There are certain things that can disturb the balance of our emotions, and that literally feeds our traumas, right? Because God wants us to be whole. He doesn't want us to be dealing with, I feel like I'm talking a lot.
Let's talk.
God does not want us to be traumatized. You can experience a trauma without being traumatized. Okay. You can have an emotional wound without walking in unforgiveness. So there are certain things that are going to literally block us from being whole. Number one, being too busy. Being too busy or rushing around all the time. There are so many people that literally use the busyness of life to not deal with their trauma. They literally stay busy. all the time so that they don't sit down for 2 seconds and deal with their trauma. They literally fill their lives with things so that they don't have to deal with themselves. Oh boy, I got to go do this. I got to go do that. And they come up with all kinds of stuff to do because they're actually running from the trauma. They're running from getting to emotional wholeness or emotional healing. So how do you fix being too busy or rushing? You need to reevaluate your time commitments. You need to reevaluate what you are putting so much time and energy into, number one. And then number two, you need to take time for silence and meditation on a daily basis. There is something that I do every day. I've gotten in the habit of doing it, but there's something I do every day, and that is literally I detox. I call it my detox. And what I do is I take about 30 to 40 minutes just to sit still, be quiet, do nothing. I kind of reevaluate the day, and I kind of get to a place where I can kind of really make sense of everything that's happening throughout the day. So you need to do like a daily detox, if you will. Okay. So you got to take time for silence, solitude, breathe, relax every day. Number two, here's the other thing. This is part of unforgiveness. Holding grudges. Unforgiveness. Holding a grudge and unforgiveness is not the same thing. Husbands and wives get into this all the time. They will hold a grudge for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the wife. She'll bring up something that you didn't do or that you did 3 years ago and wrap it into the present disagreement to give it further validity of why she's right. I mean, hold a whole grudge.
Why are you going there? Why?
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I mean, you could be in an argument. We could talk about, I mean, and then they like to bring up conversations that y'all had that you don't even remember. See, this is what I'm talking about. Because on July the 4th in 2003, I remember it. We sat down, you was driving, we was on our way to such and such, and you said this, and then I said this. And see, now we in 2020 and we still dealing with this. And you like, wait a minute, did you just say 2003? You just brought up a conversation from 2003? And somehow that has a bearing on this conversation. Grudges. You cannot hold on to a grudge. You know what I'm saying? Why didn't you mow the lawn today? See, you ain't mowed the lawn today, and 2 weeks ago, you ain't take out the trash. 10 weeks ago, you ain't even do the dishes. I had to do the dishes 10 weeks ago. What? Listen, let's get rid of those grudges, okay? And unforgiveness, right? Now, unforgiveness can set up a wall between you and God. Remember, Bible says, if you don't forgive your brother, I ain't gonna forgive you. And unforgiveness can set up a wall between you and other people. Okay. Here's how you deal with that. One of the hardest things to do. Forgive yourself. And a lot of times we'll hear it and we'll go, oh, that's fine. That's great. That sounds great. That's wonderful. And it sounds simple. No, you need to forgive yourself. Because a lot of times something will happen to us, and we will literally hold our feet to the fire. We will literally become super overcritical of our own self. We will have to deal with so much stuff because we're not forgiving ourselves. We are so hard on ourselves when we should be forgiving ourselves.
What I need to do there, man? Like,
Okay. Now, then you forgive your others. Now, for instance, I was the rape victim I told you about, who kind of set him up for the okie doke. She had to work toward getting herself to forgiveness. Of herself, forgiving herself. Because she had to, because the truth of the matter is, a lot of times we'll feel like we have the right to feel the way we feel or do the things that we do. But you have got to work to the place where you forgive yourself. She had to forgive herself for allowing herself to be dressed like that, act like that, do those things. She had to forgive herself because she genuinely felt like there was nothing wrong with what she did.
typical women, with the women's rights, they feel like they should dress however they want, and the man just gotta control himself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I cannot stand that argument. I'm just be honest with you. You mean to tell me you gonna show me all your goodies and expect me not to respond?
Yep, that's what they're trying to tell you.
What kind of sense does that make? It doesn't. It's advertisement.
Not be a man.
Right. I can dress however I want to dress and put on whatever I want to put on, and you better keep yourself together. The question is, why do you feel like it's okay for you to dress like that? I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm old fashioned. But I can't do it. I wish my wife would walk out the house scantily clad, barely got anything. Well, okay. Anyways, let me keep on moving. So you got to forgive yourself and others, and then you watch this. You've got to repent. You got to surrender your hurt to God. And then, here it is. You have to repent for holding unforgiveness. Oh boy. We don't want to talk about that part. We don't want to talk about having unforgiveness and then having to repent for being unforgiving. All right. Another thing that's going to foster your trauma and prevent you from becoming emotionally whole is, watch this, is stress. Stress and anxiety. Stress and anxiety. You're going to need to deal with all of these stress and stressors that are in your life. What causes stress for you? That was a question.
Repeat it.
What causes stress for you?
Causes stress.
Mm-hmm. Stress or anxiety?
Having to do things that you don't want to do without knowing what the outcome would be.
Say that again.
Having to do something that you don't know what the outcome will be, and it's not that you really want to do it.
She's anxious about trying new things without knowing what the outcome would be.
Okay. Testing new things without knowing what the outcome's going to be. Okay.
When people don't do what they're supposed to do.
You said what?
When people don't do what they're supposed to do, that stresses me.
When people don't do what they're supposed to do?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
When people don't have common sense.
That stresses you out. You're so stressful. You stressing me out. You ain't got no common sense. Oh, that's hilarious. The way you think stresses me out. Hilarious. Oh, that's too funny. Oh my Lord. Okay. Okay. So here's the deal, right? Here's the deal. The question is, why does those things stress you out? Because I'll just say because both of you, I don't know what anybody else is saying, but both of y'all just said, right? What y'all just gave me was stressors that come from other people. Pretty much what Shadir said when I got to do stuff and I don't know the outcome. And two, so let me break that down. Can I be Dr. Chris real quick? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Let me break that down. So what Shadir is actually saying is
that was Brittany.
She said that was pretty deep.
That was Brittany.
Oh, Brittany. Okay. Okay, so let me say this. When you have to do things and you don't know the outcome, here it is. What you're actually saying is, I'm stressed when I'm not in control. If I can't control it, that's going to stress me out. if I can't keep a grip on it, I'm going to be stressed. Which tells me you're addicted or dependent upon being in control. You feel safe when you're in control. Which typically means that person is controlling. It's gotta be the way I say it, because if it ain't the way I say it, it ain't gonna be a pretty picture. Okay. Now y'all said that was Brittany who said that part.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy. Right. So is that, y'all know Brittany? Is that pretty much how Brittany is? Because Pastor Kasim was laughing. He was laughing.
I've had that conversation with her before. That's why I laughed.
Oh wow! Look at there. So that's what that means, right? That means that if I'm, if I am not in control of this stuff, I'm gonna be stressed out. Other thing, Pastor Kasim said, when people ain't got common sense. That's dependent upon people. So even all of this stuff. So here's the real dialogue. Essentially, what everybody is talking about is stress that comes from other people. If somebody doesn't have common sense, somebody else don't have common sense, that stresses me out. That's a problem. What was the other one? When people don't do what they're supposed to do, that stresses me out. That's a problem. Right? So now you need to figure out, why does how people think and how they act have so much of an effect on how I feel?
Well, it's a problem when it has to do with persons trying to impose illogical ideas on me. I don't mind if you don't have common sense all on your own. But when you're trying to work with me, or let's be logical. That's nice.
Okay.
I mean, especially when you talk about somebody in authority or superior. Yeah.
Mm. Okay. So I don't mind you having no common sense. Just don't act like your lack of common sense gotta be what I do.
Yeah.
Okay. Just don't make me join in your stupidity. Is that what you saying?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Ah, okay. You can be stupid, just don't make me be stupid with you. That what you saying?
Yes.
Okay, just one thing. Hey, you gotta break it down for the people. Okay. So, anyways, let me talk about how you can deal with these stressors and anxiety and all of this stuff, right? So, one, talk to a good friend or a counselor about what is stressing you, right? What y'all gave was pretty basic things, but sometimes people's stressors or whatever are much deeper. And sometimes you need to talk to a counselor. And so you got to learn to release those cares to the Lord, right? Learn to trust God with your cares and all of that. And learn some type of form of what I like to call self-therapy. Sometimes it's music, sometimes it's watching your favorite TV show, sometimes it's whatever. It's a way to de-stress. Find what de-stresses you and use that as a tool to keep yourself from being stressful and anxious. All right. Here's another one. Not getting enough sleep. Oh boy, I'm guilty of this one. Not getting enough sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all know me. I don't sleep. I'm always moving. Right? So once again, you got to the way you get over that, you got to reevaluate your time commitments. You got to take time to exercise daily and relax daily. Relieve stress daily. Take a day of Sabbath or take a day of rest. And you need to sometimes listen to like relaxing music. So this is something that I've started to get into because I realized that I wasn't getting enough sleep. I mean, it wasn't a big, surprise, but I'm like, you know what? I need to work on this. So I started listening to relaxing music all day. It pretty much plays all day for me. And then I started literally taking what I call pit stops. Like in the middle of the day, I'll literally for about an hour and a half sit and do nothing. And then I try to go to sleep at a fairly reasonable hour. Don't ask me what hour that is because you're going to think it's unreasonable. But it's reasonable for me. I'm a work in progress. We all in here. So this but yeah, not getting enough sleep is going to, watch this, keep you emotionally wounded and foster traumas. Now, how? Because a lot of times people literally stay up, like they're awake all hours of the night rehearsing these things that are going on inside of them. You need to go to sleep because I guarantee you the one that caused this wound is sleeping. Okay. All right, another one. I'm gonna move fast. Another thing that is going to foster emotional unhealthiness, if you will, and foster traumas is unresolved and unhealed hurt and being wounded.
Say that again.
Unresolved and unhealed hurt and woundedness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Don't have to deal with that. Like for real. You have to deal with them. Deal with the one that hurt you. Deal with the one that wounded you. And if in fact you can't deal with the wound or the hurt, then what you can do is deal with the one who caused the wound or the hurt. Then you need to deal with your responsibility in it. Because I don't care what you say or what you think, you still have a responsibility in it. You played a part in it. Doesn't mean that it's your fault, but there is a part in there that you played. Deal with that. Learn to fortify yourself, not fortify yourself against people, but rather fortify yourself in building yourself up so that you can become emotionally whole. All right. Here's the big one. The lies you believe it's going to foster traumas, tragedies, emotional wounds if you believe lies. Lies you tell yourself, lies other people tell you, lies other people tell you about other people. All of that stuff. Your husband, your man is not a dog. He just made a mistake. Your husband, your man is not irresponsible. He just forgot to do something. Your wife is not a nagger, though she might be. She just likes to remind you of things consistently.
See the unfairness? I'm so biased. Bias.
Okay. So the way you get over that is by learning to identify the lies that you are believing, and then exchange them for the truth, God's truth, and what is actually the truth, right? Another thing, negative attitudes is going to literally cement you. If you have a negative attitude, it is going to keep you in a place. It's going to cement you, fortify you, get you stuck in a place of emotional unhealthiness, and it's going to keep you in a place of being traumatized. The quickest way to get rid of that negative attitude is learning to say thank you. Practicing gratitude. Feed your mind every day. Positivity. Feed your mind the word of God. All of that. That is going to get rid of negative attitudes. Here's another one. Selfishness and being self-centered. And the way you get rid of that is literally giving up your own will for God's will for your life. Another one, perfectionism and being too serious. Woo-wee. Everything got to be just perfect. Got to be just like this. It's got to be just like this. If it ain't like this, then I'm a freak out and it's not going to be good. And you just literally take stuff too seriously. Learn to relax. Establish a healthy view of yourself and exchange the lies of perfectionism for the truth of God. Okay? And here's the last one. And I didn't even know Brittany was going to say what she said, but the last one was attempting to be in control. And the way you get over that control is to literally give up your will for God's will, yes. But then you need to really reevaluate your view of God, and then also reevaluate your view of yourself. Why do you feel the need to be in control? Why does it have to be you that's the one in control? It's reevaluating who and what God is. I feel like I've been talking for a long time. Y'all can ask me questions and stuff now.
This is good.
It's good, and you are biased. You're saying.
She said, did you say I'm biased?
For the husbands, I guess. Talk about the nagging.
I did say, listen, there's a saying, I don't know if y'all say it over there in the Caribbean, but there's a saying that we say in the US. You want to know what it says? It says a hit dog will holler. Now, I'm not calling you a dog, but what it means is you only get mad and you only say something if it has something to do with you.
Wow.
Really?
Wow.
Y'all hear it?
Wow.
Y'all hear the Dr. Apostle?
Yeah. So listen, no, I'm not biased because there's things that husbands do that's crazy. Sometimes husbands have an unhealthy expectation of perfectionism from their wife. Husbands can lack the understanding of all the things a wife has to do, especially if you got kids, and especially if you are co-pastoring a church. If you are the wife of a minister, of a pastor, you gotta do a whole lot of stuff, and a lot of times there's a pressure that comes upon the wife that is sometimes seemingly unbearable. I get it. But in this case, I had to cover my son, though. I'm joking, kind of. Maybe not.
Oh,
Angelica to come and help me out here.
Nope, not here.
mm.
Oh man, that's funny. But yeah. So, ultimately, in dealing with traumas and in dealing with emotional wounds, understand that the rehearsal of your trauma is a tool that the enemy is going to use. And your emotional wounds. He wants you to rehearse them, keep going over them, keep thinking about it, because it inevitably will cause you to hurt yourself, and it will get you out of God's timing. It will literally rob you of destiny and everything, because he literally is getting you to rehearse all the wrong that's going on. That becomes a problem.
At the same time, I feel as if sometimes it could be normal human nature to avoid the issue sometimes. Like it's there, but it's unaddressed. How do you...
Say that again?
Sometimes you could have a trauma or a trigger or something like that, but for some reason you decide to avoid it because you prefer not to deal with it. How would you address a situation like that? How do you
It kind
get
of
from...
went in and out. It kind of went in and out. You said sometimes you say it one more time for me.
Sometimes you might have a trauma, but for some reason, maybe fear or whatever, you decide to avoid the issue. You run away from it, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
How would you advise someone in terms of deciding to face it head on and deal with it?
First off, you need to have the first step is to have an inner dialogue with yourself. Kind of acknowledge the truth of what happened. Right? You need to come to the truth that this is what happened. My husband slapped me in the face. Take that in. Learn that. Okay. Take it in. Grab that. My husband slapped me in the face. Okay. Then you need to go through and process. How does that make me feel? Why does that make me feel this way? Just going, it's just wrong. Though it is, that's not how you process it. Though it is wrong and should never happen, that's not how you process it. Why is it wrong? How does that make you feel? It makes me feel violated for what? Because so then you work through all of these things, and you may land at a place of, because the person who was supposed to protect me now is doing me harm. Okay, why does that mean so much to you? Well, and this is just an example. Well, I've always been misused or abused by my protectors. Okay, talk more about that. All right, well, my dad left me when I was a kid. My uncle raped me when I was growing up. My big brother would always hit me and all of this stuff. And I thought that my husband would never do anything like that to me. Okay, so that's how you begin to process. So then the issue becomes, all right, yes, he hit you. We're going to deal with that. But let's also deal with your emotional wound, because your emotional wound is not the slap in your face. Your emotional wound is abandonment. So the thing is, you feel abandoned. You felt like he violated you and he rejected you, and it triggered that undealt with emotional wound and trauma of abandonment, rejection, being cast away, violation, and abuse. So that one slap in the face triggered all of that stuff. So we need to deal with all of that gunk so that when you address the actual issue, you can address it whole and not with an super emotional response. I should say over emotional response. Does that make sense?
Yes, it did.
So you have that inner dialogue first, and then you have to find the strength. And the way you find the strength is having that inner dialogue. Because a lot of times we won't deal with the trauma because we won't deal with the root of it. If you don't deal with the root of it, then you'll never have the strength to deal with what just happened to you. I have found that with a lot of people. So, yeah, have that emotional dialogue, get to a place of wholeness, and attack that thing with strength. Sometimes you might have to do it simultaneously. Because I'm not saying let them go scot-free, but you're going to have to deal with it. You're going to have to find the strength to ultimately deal with it. But the strength is going to come from having that inner dialogue. Not blaming yourself, not being hard on yourself or anything like that, but rather finding the emotional strength to deal with yourself so that you can deal with that problem. And tell the truth.
So then when does the person know that they're emotionally whole?
When does a person know that they're emotionally whole?
Yeah.
When they can rehearse the issue or talk about the problem or whatever that emotional wound was, when they can deal with that, talk to the person who did it or whatever without an adverse response. That's when you're emotionally whole. Like if you were to shoot my mother and kill her, okay, you might not be alive for me to talk to you. If you were, no, we ain't gonna be no conversations after that. No. No, say like you were to do me wrong. You, I don't know, punch me in the face. After I punch you in the face back, we're going to have a conversation. No, I'm joking. But I'm emotionally healed when I can be around you, talk to you, laugh and joke with you as if you never did it. I can think about, man, you punched me in the face and not have an adverse response. I can not want to punch you back. I can still want to be around you. I can, and not mind being around you. You know, all of that. That's when you know that you've gotten to a place of emotional healing, where that person's presence or that situation, that place, no longer is having an adverse response, emotionally, mentally, or physically, with you. Some people have a response physically to other people, right? You can have the trauma, right? Because believe it or not, oh boy, this is Abba's house. Y'all like to talk about real issues, so we can do this, right?
Right.
Real
All right.
people being in church for real.
Yeah. All right. So watch this. Sex outside of marriage is a trauma. Though it may feel good, though it may be good, all of that stuff, it's actually a trauma. Because some people have a physical trauma. They can be married, and when they get around that person that they did it with outside of marriage, sometimes there is a physical, I've counseled people that literally have a physical response. They want to do it again with that person, and it's not their spouse. Or there's a response like oh, I remember when. I wonder if there's a response. That means that you have not healed from the trauma of intercourse with someone who is not your spouse. And you got to work through that. I know.
I've never seen it that way. Very interesting.
Yep. So there's multiple forms of trauma. All traumas is not you hit me, you cut me, you did me wrong, you left. It's not always that. It's certain things that we've done, and we don't know that. Like I said, I started off. Sometimes we don't even know that we've been traumatized. Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
What was that face, Pastor Cosby?
Shakira saying that nothing phases her.
I was just saying that is why nothing phases me when I hear stories, because you don't know what a root of the problem is, and you just identify a few. So that's why I say nothing doesn't really phase me.
Oh, okay. Now I understand what you're trying to say.
She said nothing really phases her.
When she hears different stories, because you don't know what the root of it is.
Mm.
Yeah. So nothing really phases her in that way. Because you hear some crazy stories sometimes.
I bet.
Yeah.
I bet. So you don't have a response to it? Is that what she's saying?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So is that apathy?
Like, okay.
No, it's not. It's not. It's not. Don't care, but I wouldn't really like if I hear your issue. It might be shocking to someone, and someone would immediately indirectly cast judgment. I don't really view it like that. I don't have a casting judgment mindset, so it doesn't really phase me. I care, but it doesn't phase me to the point
It
where
doesn't like shock you. That's what you're trying to say.
no, it doesn't shock me.
Okay. That's probably a better word to use.
Okay, it doesn't shock me. That's a better word to use.
Okay, got it. So you're not shocked by what people say.
No.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. I get that. Um yeah, I get that totally. I hear a lot of stories and then I'll just sit there and go, huh. It's very rare that I am shocked by anything. So I get it. I get what you're saying. Y'all got any more questions?
Any more questions? Question? You sure? Question? Going once.
No more questions. I was thoroughly blessed.
Say that again.
No more questions. I was thoroughly blessed.
Wonderful. Yay. Makes me happy. But yeah. But honestly, I believe that God really is engaging us in a place where we have to deal with a lot of these things because even in the churches and even in church, man, we got pastors that are wounded and traumatized, and that's why we keep going through the same cycles we've been going through year after 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 year. Same cycles, because the pastor isn't being broken free from emotional wounds and emotional traumas. It's a problem, and we got to fix it. And I believe God is wanting us all to deal with all of those things from the top down.
Yes.
I mean, even here in the United States, we got a president that is so traumatized and full of emotional wounds that he can't even talk straight.
Oh
I
boy.
mean, he says one thing. I mean, you say one thing that disagrees with him, and he loses it. He is emotionally unstable because he has so many wounds. And he is immensely traumatized. But anyways, praise
Yes.
the Lord.
Question? You have a question?
Okay.
Suppose like you are trying to forgive, you have forgiven
Well, I
and
can
let
barely
go.
hear. It's feeding back.
Let go of an issue. Let go of an issue.
Okay, start from the top. Say it again.
Suppose you have let go of an issue with a person and you still have to deal with the person regularly. And they keep bringing it back up like they're trying to traumatize you all over again.
Okay.
Interesting. Good
Suppose
question.
you let go of an issue, but you have to deal with that person regularly, right?
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 And then they keep bringing it up like they trying to traumatize you all over again.
Yes.
Okay. Then you need to establish healthy boundaries. People will only do, for the most part, people will only do to you what you give them permission to do. I've gotten to a place where I will literally ask somebody, I did it yesterday. I asked somebody, who gave you permission to talk to me like that? Did I Did I give you permission that I wanted to talk about this? Listen, it's over. It's done with. We've talked through it. We've forgiven each other. We've handled it. What we're not going to do is continue to talk about it after we've come to resolution. So either we're going to talk about something more productive beyond it because I have to deal with you, or we're going to not talk at all and only deal with what we have to deal with as it pertains to work or whatever it is you got to deal with them on a regular basis. But what we're not going to do is keep rehashing or rehearsing the trauma, because that's like beating a dead horse. For what? So getting or building healthy boundaries is so important. Okay?
So the question?
If they totally disregard the boundaries, what?
I'm sorry?
If they totally disregard the boundaries, what should I do?
Is it total disregard to do what now?
If they totally disregard the boundaries, what's your next step?
Cut them off. I'm sorry. You've got to get to a place of healing, of wholeness, and you got to protect yourself. So if they won't respect your boundaries, that's a violation of your boundaries. That's no different than somebody breaking into your house. Why would you keep letting that happen? Now, if this is is this person a spouse that you're dealing with, or is this like a coworker? Because it's different. It depends on who they are as well.
Can you give us the 2 examples?
Okay. If it is your spouse and they're not respecting those boundaries that you set up, like, listen, I don't want to keep trying. We've gotten to resolution. We've gotten to a place of wholeness or healing or whatever, and we're healing through it. But at the same time, if your spouse is not going to respect those boundaries, let me say this, your spouse is not going to respect your boundaries, then y'all need to go to a place of seeking counsel, therapy, or something like that, because there's still something in that spouse that's unresolved. Now, if it's a coworker, somebody outside of that, then you really can cut them off. Literally cut them off and be like, I'm not going to deal. I'm not going to deal. And we're going to do work. We're going to work together. We're going to do what we got to do. And at the end of it, that's it. But I'm not going to entertain any other conversations. I did that. I've done that before.
Mm-hmm.
I know. Church got quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Is your husband continuously bringing up traumas?
No question.
Shadir?
That's definitely not her husband. Definitely not her husband.
Yeah, no. So if you're, yeah, I mean, if it, honestly, you deal with it separately if it's your spouse. I mean, you can't necessarily cut your spouse off because they keep bringing stuff up. Y'all need to seek counseling to get to a resolution because there's still something unresolute in that spouse. That makes sense.
Okay. You sure?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
That was it.
Yeah, that was good. Shadir's gonna close us off in prayer.
Wonderful.
Lord, we just want to give you thanks for everything that has transpired this afternoon. Lord, we thank you for having, um, for downloading these truths into Apostle Chris this afternoon, that he was able to bless us and bring clarity to issues that we probably didn't know, have an idea, or didn't know what the solutions were. We thank you for that clarity, oh God. We pray that um, you would continue to bless him, oh God, that you would continue to empower him. Not only just empower him, oh God, but empower his entire family, oh God. Father God, just like how he blessed us this afternoon with the word, oh God, I pray that you would just bless him immensely as well, his entire family, as he continue to do your will, oh God. In your name we pray,
Amen. And our, you're saying something? Yeah? Oh. Um, and our vision for this year, as you guys know, is to go do, give, be blessed. So we are not to just be hearers of the word, but to be doers also. So we're gonna go and live it out, apply everything that Apostle Chris has taught us today, so that we can all become emotionally whole. And my expectation is that the issues that we have today won't last too long, because we're going to take the step as we go out this door to start um, dealing with, confronting, and addressing these issues and working towards our healing. All right? So go do, go give, be blessed. Have a wonderful week. See you guys next week.
bye. You're mute.
Oh, bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.